Out of the game. What do you say when people, ask, do you deserve this?
Yeah, it's kind of a funny question, because it's like not really my decision. I'm not the one that makes that call, but obviously the UFC thought that it was the right move, and personally, if it does come to my opinion, I think it's the right move too. I think that there's a lot of people that want to watch me, a lot of people that want to see how I fare, and I think it makes sense. So, obviously they agreed with that, and if other people disagree, then it's not really up to you either.
Last thing for me, I guess, how do you define success in your debut? Is it just victory? I mean, can you grind out a 15-minute decision and be satisfied with that, or do you have to keep this crazy streak of finishes going?
I would obviously love to get a finish. I like to fight exciting style and make sure that I put on a good show for the fans. But for me, really, success is just being the best version of myself and performing to the best of my ability. So regardless whether I finish him in a minute or win a decision in 15, I think as long as I perform the best and I feel like I gave 100%, then that's a win in my book.
Well, over here. We had Jamie in here earlier, and when we asked, when your name was brought to him, he didn't even know who you were, just because he didn't watch wrestling or anything. He's since gone and looked at your tape and everything, but he still just kind of views you as just a body that he's gonna have to fight. Do you think that's the right approach for facing someone like you with what you bring to the octagon?
Probably not. I don't think that's a great approach. I would definitely, before I accept a fight, I do a lot of study and film on a guy. I think that if he actually didn't know who I was and accepted the fight, then that doesn't really make him look more professional or better in any way. But yeah, it's all good. I don't really care how he approaches it. I'm just focused on what I need to do.
And obviously, you can't really, you've been wrestling your whole life. He's brought in fighters like Chris Weidman to help him train and prepare. How much can you learn to face someone like you in this only a short few weeks?
Yeah, it's interesting, the idea of trying to bring someone in to emulate me. Weidman obviously is super talented, wrestling based, and all those good things. But I don't really think that there's anybody that has the skills that I have that is able to do the things that I can do. And so, maybe that's a good option for him. But as far as options go, there aren't many.
And final one for me, we spoke to your coach, Mike Brown. He wants a slow rise. He doesn't want this rapid ascension. So I'm curious, are you going to follow his advice, or how fast of a rise do you want?
It's already been a lot faster than I anticipated. I expected to have quite a few more fights before getting to this point. Obviously, there were different plans in store for me, and I'm just riding with it. And so I trust Mike fully, 100%, and I really lean on him and his advice and the advice of my management team, first-round management. And, the people that I'm close to, their opinions really, really matter to me, and they're really weighted very heavily in my decisions. And so I'm really good with whatever the team wants to do, and I feel like that's kind of the approach that I'll continue to take.
Well, going off the back of that, your name has been linked with the bigger names in this sport already. Is there any part of you that's a little bit disappointed you're not fighting a bigger name opponent for your debut just to make the biggest splash possible?
No disappointment. I love competing regardless of who I get to compete against, and so being mentioned with the same with these other people's names and stuff is something that I'm just grateful for, and I feel a lot of appreciation that people believe in me and they believe in my skills. And so the opponent, with it being my UFC debut, I think that it's appropriate. I think it makes sense, and I'm 3-0, been training MMA for a year and a half, and I'll continue to progress and get better, but at the same time, I don't skip any steps in development. And I'm going to make sure that when I am competing with the best guys in the world and at the highest level, that I'm ready to dominate them as well.
You mentioned professionalism and you mentioned listening to your team and stuff like that. It's clear that's what people value. Do you look at the rest of the UFC and sort of think, there's some guys who just aren't that professional?
I think coming from my background, being a collegiate athlete at Penn State, the winningest sports program at the NCAA in the last 10 years, not only wrestling, but any sport, I think that there's just kind of a different precedent set, and there's a different mindset that I have, and that doesn't really have anything to do with me personally. That just has to do with the people that I'm around, the program, and learning from a lot of great leaders and great individuals and people that have achieved super awesome things. And so I just try to soak all of that up, and I think transitioning to MMA, there's definitely a big difference in how people handle things, but it's not really I don't think it's personal. I think it's anybody's fault. It's just the environment they're around, and I've just been very fortunate to have a lot of good people around me.
Last one for me. You know how hype trains usually go, right? It builds, and then the moment there's even a sort of hint of vulnerability, people say, "Oh, they're not that good." Is that something that you think about and think, "Well, I have to dominate everyone I go up against, or eventually people will turn against me," or is that not something you consider?
I would say that it's definitely like I see a lot of people talking and I hear people saying certain things, and it's always interesting to me to kind of observe that, because I think I'm my own worst critic. So anything that anybody's going to say to me, I'm already like 2 steps ahead of that. And so really, as far as the hype train stuff, I would say that it has it has to have some effect, because I do hear it and I do notice it, and as that is information that is kind of coming in. But again, the more there's more pressure put on me from myself than anyone else, and I want to finish people and continue this hype train, because that's just in me. I just really want to achieve my goals, and I want to be the best fighter in the world. And so whatever anybody says, yeah, it's coming in, I'm hearing it, but I'm a harsher critic on myself than anyone else could be.
Well, right here. You mentioned it right there. You want to be the best fighter in the world. You've spoken previously about wanting to be one of the all-time greats. Is it motivating to look up this card and see Jon Jones, someone who a lot of people consider the best fighter of all time? And have you been able to take motivation from that? And have you had any conversations with them?
Yeah, super motivating for me. I remember being probably like 5th, 6th grade, watching UFC events and seeing Jon Jones dismantle people. And so to be on the same card as him is a big honor. I'm very grateful for that opportunity. I think it's pretty cool. And I was able to meet him yesterday actually at the PI. He tried to take me down, but I obviously stuffed that and ran around, got behind him and stuff. But again, very grateful to be on the card, and he's definitely a guy that his fighting style I would like to emulate.
Okay, so give us some insight. We don't know the heavyweight Jon Jones. What does it feel like him trying to take you down?
He had a pretty strong grip, but overall, it was just straight wrestling, so I had a big advantage. But yeah, he's gonna be fine this weekend, I'm sure. I'm really excited to see him fight. A lot of anticipation with him coming up to heavyweight, and I think that he'll probably put on his best performance ever, just because there's more pressure and more eyes, and he's a guy that performs when the spotlight's on him, better than anyone.
And speaking of pressure, coming off the Contender Series, it seemed like a day, a week could go by where your name wasn't in a headline attached to this, that, or the other thing. And some of that, since the other fight fell apart, has slowed down a little bit. Has that been easier for you, maybe taking some of the pressure off? I'm sure it'll ramp up over these next few days again.
I always feel pressure. I think it's different than what most people would assume, because the pressure from me, again, it all comes from me. It comes internally. Regardless of what people think of me, I want to be the best. That just comes from me and my heart and what I'm passionate about. And so I feel pressure every single day when I go in the training room. I'm obviously training at American Top Team, sparring with really high-level guys, and I feel like I just want to get better and better and better and keep improving. And so, I'm nervous not only, for a real fight, but I'm nervous in training because I just care about it so much, and I put everything into this. And now I get the opportunity to kind of show what I've been working on and continue to get better.
Over here. Right. How much does it help? You talked about being an American Top Team, getting to train over there. How many just really good middleweights are there? You've got Johnny Evelyn, Dalton Rasta. You really have, some of the best training partners you could have. How much does that help this process of, you going from a year and a half to, making your UFC debut?
It helps a ton, right? Iron sharpens iron. Everybody knows that. And it was the same mindset for me coming from high school to college, going to Penn State, where there's the best wrestlers in the world there. I get to train with the best guys day in, day out. And now, moving into MMA, it's the same thing. Training at American Top Team with the best middleweights in the world, have the best coaches in the world. It's super exciting and something that I really appreciate. I'm grateful for. And so every single time that I train, I'm fully 100% focused, all in, and I really love it. So yeah, just overall very grateful for all the people around me again.
And coming from a collegiate wrestling background, what have you made of sort of this Dagestani takeover in the UFC with Umar Nurmagomedov, Islam Makhachev? I'm sure you're paying attention to that. What do you think of what they've been able to do in the sport?
Yeah, it's awesome accomplishments that they've had. Those guys compete at such a high level. I think that, the way they compete, I enjoy that intensity. I enjoy seeing the way that they structure their training and really the way they live their lives. Obviously super disciplined and fully focused, all in on and committed to their goal. And so, that's something that's very exciting in the sport, to see people that I think honestly have a very similar mindset to what I have and a similar mindset to what we preach at Penn State. And so, seeing the way that they compete and how high level they've gotten, it's exciting for me because, I want to take my team at American Top Team, Happy Valley, and at Penn State and be the next wave of strong grapplers to come up and start challenging those guys.
The focus is on Saturday. What are some of your goals this year? Is it keeping active? Is it getting in the rankings? What are some personal goals that you have for your career so far?
Personal goals for my career, like you said, first and foremost, focus on this fight. It's been really interesting just kind of going through fight week for the first time and seeing all the ins and outs and everything that goes into it. It's a lot. So yeah, thank you to every single person here for putting your effort into it, because for me, coming in from a wrestling background, we get a little bit of attention, but to see all the attention that's on the media and that comes with this is just incredible. But yeah, to move on to my goals, I would say I would like to fight a few more times this year, stay active, and yeah, then probably just keep getting better. Like I said, my main goal is to just keep improving every single day, and I think that every single fight that y'all will see a completely different fighter out there.
Last one for me. Obviously, you got a long ways to go in terms of your UFC career, but we're hearing Khamzat Chimaev coming up to 185 again. Down the line, how exciting of a matchup would that be, facing him just with your styles?
It would be huge. I think that obviously he has a lot of attention. He's probably the biggest, most hyped guy coming up right now that hasn't won a belt yet. And I think that eventually us clashing is inevitable. So that's something that I visualize in my training, and when I'm in a hard workout, getting my last bike sprint in, getting my last rep in the weight room, I'm visualizing that. And so whether that fight comes in a year or in 3 years or 5 years, whatever it is, I'll be ready. And I do a lot of visualization, and I see that fight happening main event in Raider Stadium, and in front of whatever 100,000 people, and I think it'll be the biggest event in UFC history. So only time will tell whether or not we actually get that, but I'm doing everything in my power to make that happen.
Hey, man. Hey, Bo, right here in the back. Very back. Bo, is it difficult not being the only two-sport athlete famously named Bo?
I wouldn't say difficult. Definitely enjoy watching high-level athletes compete, especially Bo. So I watched Bo Jackson 30 for 30, and it was pretty sick. So just yeah, I don't know. Hopefully I'll be able to continue the namesake and do it some honor.
I know that there was once a series, Bo knows takedown, so you haven't necessarily shied away from it, but is it a little annoying to people now? Does Bo know striking? Does Bo know MMA?
I don't think it's annoying. I think the only thing that's annoying is Nike has that copyrighted, so I can't use it, but it's all good.
Final question, since you shaved your head, how are you dealing with the cold front that's been hitting the western coast?
Man, it's crazy. I'm coming from PA in the winter, and I'm like, all right, nice. I got to go to Vegas and enjoy this warm weather, get some sun. Then I come out here, and this is what I get. So it is what it is. But yeah, the shaved head definitely feels clean, so I'm ready to rock.
Over here. You're one of the largest favorites in UFC debut in history. How does it feel to have the support from the odds makers?
Pretty crazy, definitely feeling a lot of support. Obviously, they believe in me, think I can win it. And overall, my transition to MMA, there's been some talk about people hating on me, this and that, but I would say like 95% of the interaction I get is super positive, and a lot of people believe in me. They believe in what I'm doing, especially once they get to know me, maybe listen to some interviews and hear my thought process, or get to see videos of how I train. So overall, I think that the reception's been super positive. It's something that I'm grateful for, and I think that's reflected in the odds.
you're minus 1,400 to win the fight, which is a pretty high price to pay. How do you see yourself winning this fight?
You know, I expect to finish. Obviously, you know, I want to go out there and get the finish. I think everybody says that, but for me, that's definitely stays true. And I think, you know, I think I said minus in my contenders fight that a minus 3,000 was a steal, and I feel the same about minus 1,400 for the win. But yeah, I would predict a finish for sure.
All right, you talked about the excitement of being on the John Jones card. Let's talk about that main event. Who do you have winning in the main event?
I got Jones 100%. You know, no doubt in my mind that he's gonna. Obviously, he had a long layoff, hasn't fought in a while, but I think that he's gonna go out there and perform really well. He's a guy again that when the pressure's on, he performs the best, and he just knows how to fight. So. And knows how to win, and I think that is even bigger than being a great fighter. Is he knows how to win, and so I predict him getting the win, and yeah, doing it in spectacular fashion.
Brother, so you talked about visualization, and this not being a fight night, being inside T-Mobile Arena, sold out, and a John Jones card, so there's going to be 1 million people in there. How do you visualize how you react to the crowd and just the environment, and just how big of an event this is?
Yeah. You know, I think the important thing about visualization is making it really real, making it really a visceral experience. So, you know, I think that there's technique that goes into visualization, just like there's technique that goes into fighting. And so for me, it's making the experience as real as possible. Imagining not only what I'll see, but what it's going to sound like, what it's going to smell like, what the concrete's going to feel like underneath my feet, what the cage is going to feel like underneath my feet. And yeah, just making it as real as possible for me. So, you know, when I go in there for the first time, it really won't be the first time because I've imagined it so many times in my mind, and I think that's just a very powerful practice.
And then along the lines of that, what are some of your teammates and your coach told you about what it's going to be like? You know, that whole adrenaline dump, they talked about that as well, but the fact that, I mean, this is a huge card.
Yeah, you know, I think that I haven't got too much advice because I think my teammates and coaches have just continued to say, you know, be yourself. I feel like I'm prepared for this moment. I feel like, you know, 4 years of college wrestling on top of, you know, 15 plus years of wrestling as a youth that I'm ready for this moment. You know, I feel like I've had a slow build to get here. You know, a lot of people are just thrust into this spot with no previous life experience, but for me, I'm 27. I've competed hundreds of times in front of sold out crowds, and that's just something that's normal for me. You know, I was 19 years old competing in sold out Madison Square Garden, and I've competed in front of 30,000 people like on a regular basis. And you know, so I know it's definitely bigger. I don't want to diminish the how big this event is because it's definitely the biggest event that I've had a chance to take part in. But with that being said, I feel fully prepared for this moment. I feel better prepared than almost anybody to step out there and do my best.
Lastly, for me, competing at Madison Square Garden as an amateur, that's dope. But the fact that you're fighting in Las Vegas, fight capital of the world, in the UFC, and you come from a wrestling background, did you ever think that you would be in this position as a kid?
As a kid, I didn't really think about fighting too much as a kid. I always loved fighting, and you know, I would watch all the events and, you know, mess around with my friends and fight and stuff as a kid. So I always loved fighting. I would say that the first time that I was sure I wanted to fight was probably halfway through my college wrestling career, and I was kind of deciding, am I going to just wrestle or am I going to fight? And then I was doing a camp and had some jiu-jitsu guys that were like, yo, you want to roll with us? And they just basically 10 of them rotated in on me for an hour, and I was like, this is really fun. I definitely want to learn more about this, and I definitely want to fight. And so from there, my goals are always the most almost unattainable, unreachable, highest type of goals you can achieve. So, you know, going into college, it was to be a 4-time undefeated national champion, and now going into MMA, I want to be pound for pound #1 fighter in the world. And so I definitely envision myself getting to this point. It's happened really quickly. You know, I've only been training, like I said, a year and a half, and to get to this point now is pretty crazy, but I do feel like I did envision myself getting here, at some point.